Hello and welcome back to the channel where I provide regular cricket content on interesting topics. Today's video is actually based off of a request in previous comments, and it's one I approach with a certain amount of nervousness. I am going to prepare the cricketing histories of two giants of the game and come to a conclusion who I think has been the better team over time. I think it is really important to note that I have no horse in this race. If you're unfamiliar with that English phrase, what it means is that I have no preference. I genuinely believe that both sides have made amazing contributions to the game. I grew up watching cricket in the 90s, so was weaned on Pakistan's bowling and the Indian batting. But with all of that said, I will come to a conclusion, so let's get started. So then, Pakistan and India are two cricket-loving nations that share a rich history of rivalry on the cricket field. Both countries have produced some of the greatest cricketers of all time and have made significant contributions to the sport. In this video I will compare Pakistan and India's success in international cricket, specifically in tests and one-day internationals, taking into account win-loss ratios, performances away from home, performances against the best teams of eras, and performance against each other. Win-loss ratios. One easy metric to measure them on is their win-loss ratios. In summary, the higher the number the better. In terms of win-loss ratios, Pakistan has the edge over India in tests. India has a win-loss ratio of 0.98, while Pakistan has a ratio of 1.05. In one-day internationals, India has a win-loss ratio of 1.23 while Pakistan has a ratio of 1.19. So for one-day internationals, that goes to India. These statistics suggest that it is going to be pretty hard to separate these two sides, but I will carry on. Performances away from home. Performing away from home is considered the ultimate test for any cricket team, and both Pakistan and India have had their fair share of successes and failures in this regard. These figures are unfortunately not recorded on ESPN's Cricinfo pages, so I had to go rummaging around the internet. I managed to find an article from 2018 which included all Test nations' away records. So the following is presented with the caveat that the data is not up to date. What I found, however, was that from both sides' Test debuts to 2018, Pakistan had the better record away from home in Test matches. Pakistan's win-loss record during this time sat at 0.77. India's record was 0.43. So although the data is old, the gap is so large that it is safe to say that Pakistan has the edge here. I couldn't find anywhere the one-day international home versus away record, so I will have to move on. Performances against the best teams of eras. Pakistan and India have both played against some of the greatest cricket teams of all time, and their performances against these teams can be used as a yardstick to measure their success. I decided I wanted to use the West Indies teams of the 80s and the Australian teams of the 90s here. So in tests, the India win-to-loss record against the West Indies during the 80s was 0.11. Pakistan's win-loss record against the Windies during this time was 0.75. In one-day cricket against the West Indies, India had a win-loss record of 0.15. Pakistan, on the other hand, was 0.2. So in summary, both in tests and one-day internationals versus the great West Indies team of the 80s, Pakistan had better record. It is worth noting, however, that neither had a good record. It shows quite how dominant the West Indies were. Moving on to Australia in the 90s and starting with test matches. The India win-loss record against Australia in the 90s was 0.42. Pakistan's was 0.29. In terms of one-day internationals, the game shifted towards mini-series in the 90s, with India, for example, playing in a bucket load that included the Australians. The results aren't as easy to analyze as they were for the 80s, which were just head-to-head series in the main. So I will have to move on, otherwise my wife will not stop shouting at me for being on my computer. The last category I am going to look at is the head-to-heads between the two countries. In test matches, Pakistan have the edge with 12 wins to 9 losses. In one-day cricket, Pakistan also get the better of their rivals by a margin of 73 to 55. Somewhere that India does hold an advantage over Pakistan is in terms of one-day World Cups, with 2 wins to Pakistan's 1. Conclusion. In conclusion, Pakistan has been more successful than India in terms of win-loss ratios and had a better record overall against the best teams of eras if you combined West Indies and Australia. Both teams have struggled away from home, but Pakistan has been slightly more successful in this regard. As a reminder, I like both cricketing nations, but overall I have to give the win to Pakistan. They have better win records in most areas, ultimately have won more games when the two teams have met. What I would say, however, before I finish the video is that over the past 10 to 20 years, India has been the stronger side. This is evidenced by their place in the last two World Test Championship finals and the current ICC rankings. Perhaps if India can continue their form for another 10 years or so, their overall record will surpass Pakistan's. I, as a fan of cricket, look forward to seeing this rivalry continue for many years to come. Thanks for watching, everyone. Send a message. Free research preview. ChatGPT may produce inaccurate information about people, places, or facts. ChatGPT March 23 version. New chat.